Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for coming. It's a very nice crowd today. Thank you so much. Again, as I always ask, please, if you could silence the cell phones so we can avoid the interruptions. Also, before we begin, I wanted to also let you know about another event today, this evening, right, Ramzi? At 7 o'clock today, there's going to be a screening of the film The Occupation of the American Mind. It's going to be in Tacoma Park at the Tacoma Park Community Center, which is, I think, just a 15-minute walk from the metro, the Tacoma Metro Station. There's also going to be a panel with Tahir Herzallah of American Muslim for Palestine, Rabbi Shmuel Herzfeld, and Maharat Ruth Friedman, as well as Matthew Mayers of J Street. It will be also live streamed, but if you can make it, that would be good. And if you have more questions about this, you can talk to Ramzi, who's right here. After the event, you can ask him about it. My name is Muhammad. I'm the executive director here at the Jerusalem Fund and Palestine Center. And on behalf of our board of directors and our staff, it's always a pleasure to have you here. So thank you for coming. And thank you also to our online audience watching. It's also a great honor to introduce and welcome our distinguished speaker today, Janna Jihad, who will be speaking about her life as a child living under Israeli military occupation. And she's come all the way from Palestine, so thank you so much. We appreciate it. So Janna is 13 years old, and she is from the village of Nabi Saleh in the West Bank, and she is the youngest officially registered journalist in the world, and she's currently here on a U.S. speaking tour. She began her journalism at the age of 7, following the Israeli killing of 2 of her family members, and she now has a global following. She has received international awards for her media role in covering the daily struggle of Palestinians living under Israeli military occupation, and she serves as the ambassador of the Palestinian Children's Initiative, Two Sons Shamsan, which you can see the poster right here. And so she will be speaking about her life living under occupation. We also have with us a good friend of ours, Miko Peled, who is going to give a short introduction before Janna speaks. He is the author of The General's Son and Injustice, the story of the Holy Land Foundation 5. He was born in Jerusalem in 1961 into a well-known Zionist family. His maternal grandfather signed the Israeli Declaration of Independence. His father fought in the 1948 Israeli War of Independence and was a general in 1967 during the Six-Day War when Israel conquered Gaza, the Golan Heights, the Sinai Peninsula, and the West Bank. Later, General Peled became a peace activist and a leading proponent of an Israeli dialogue with the PLO. After Janna speaks today, we will have a Q&A session. Again, as I always ask, please wait for the mic to come to you before you ask a question, just so that everybody else online can hear you. And our online audience, you can always tweet your questions to us at Palestine Center. Again, we would like to welcome you here. Thank you so much. And please give a very warm welcome to Miko and to, of course, Janna Jihad.
Thank you, Muhammad, and thank you all for being here. It's a great honor to be here at the Palestine Center again and to introduce Janna to you. I think it's, I want to give a little background, not just so everybody here has a sense of where she's coming from and what it looks like. Has anybody here been to Palestine? Can I see a show of hands who's been to Palestine? Everybody. Okay. Has anybody been to Nabi Saleh? Okay, a few people. Okay. So Nabi Saleh is a beautiful little village tucked in the hills in Palestine. And I believe it's one of the most beautiful spots in Palestine. And since Palestine, I think, is one of the most beautiful spots in the world, that puts Nabi Saleh up there. It's quiet, it's lovely. Ancient olive trees everywhere, kind of a hilly background, hilly geography. And they have their own freshwater spring. And it's a village that's you probably wouldn't even notice if it wasn't for the fact that they have been almost on the forefront of resistance to the Israeli occupation for many, many years, for several generations. The first time I visited Nabi Saleh, I think Janna must have, I don't know if she was born or maybe she was 1 or 2 years old. And it's incredible to see how this beautiful, pastoral, quiet, lovely place can suddenly turn into an incredible war zone. A war zone that is frightening, that is absolutely insane. Where on one side you have one of the best equipped, best trained, best financed armies in the world, acting as a terrorist organization, terrorizing a people that have never held a gun, have never had a tank, and you'll see all they have is their flags and their firm belief in their right to resist and to be free. And that's the background. The olive trees are gorgeous. The background, the hills in the background are really beautiful and quiet and lovely. And then on a Friday, or any day, but typically on a Friday, this beautiful landscape suddenly is invaded. And it's quite incredible to see. On the one hand, you can see the local Palestinians from Nabi Saleh wearing T-shirts and holding flags, covering in a kafiyah because they know the gas is coming, and more jeeps and soldiers and more jeeps and more soldiers. The first time I ever went to Nabi Saleh, it was closed. You couldn't get there. And I was driving with a Palestinian friend. We tried to go one way, then we tried to go another way, and there was absolutely no way. The army shut it down. And finally, Bassem Tamimi, who was a friend of mine, who was in the previous picture, came to meet us. We went through the olive groves under the noses of the army, and they have these missile launchers that are placed on army jeeps from which they shoot the tear gas canisters at an unbelievable speed. And we walked together just through that insanity, and the calm on the one hand of Bassem and the calm of the environment outside of this chaos, and the people's resolve to fight, and the people's resolve to stand up for their right to be free and not to be invaded, was one of the most incredible things I've seen. It was one of the most incredible experiences I've ever had in my life. And you see the gas, the tear gas and the flag, the soldiers, the tear gas and the flag. It becomes just this horrifying sight. And in the summer, of course, the tear gas catches fire, so the shrubs catch fire. And more army and more tear gas. And you'd think, you know, when you look at the military forces as they come, you can tell even before the marches begin. And the marches begin typically on a Friday afternoon, like at 1 o'clock. You see already this military presence gradually come in, and then more, and then more. And then the gate to the village, you see there's a checkpoint, there's a gate, it's shut. Traffic is not allowed in or out. And you would think that they are preparing for a battle. You would think that they're preparing for a battle with another military force. Why else would they need so much equipment and so many soldiers if it wasn't for some military threat on the other side? And on the other side, what you have is someone like Janna, who's walking around with a camera to record and make sure the world sees what happens. And young Palestinians and old Palestinians, the entire village really comes out, young, old, men, women, to march and protest the theft of their land and the oppression of their people. The place where the march usually, where people converge on a Friday, is under this beautiful mulberry tree, an enormous mulberry tree. If you've been there, I'm sure you've seen it. And one time I asked Bassem, my friend, how long has this village been here? How long have you people been here? And so he told me a story. He said one day the village elders were sitting under this lovely mulberry tree when Adam walked by and asked if they saw Eve. That's how long they've been there. And that's their claim to the land. And so whenever I go there with friends, I always encourage them to ask Bassem that same question and to get the answer, to get a sense of who these people are and how deep their roots really go. I have a picture here. Look at this. So this is the Israeli colony that was built across the road from Nabi Saleh. So Nabi Saleh is on one hill, and this settler colony was built on the other hill. Looks like it's, I don't know, a picture out of somewhere in Europe. So on the one hand, you have this very Arab, very Palestinian, very local-looking village that's indigenous and blends in with the landscape, and then you've got this. And you'll notice, for example, that just below the houses, you see the trees, you see the olive trees. If you look over here, that's where Nabi Saleh olive trees used to be before the settlers cut them down and burnt them. The other thing that happened is, on that side of the street is the water source. And the settlers took over that as well. So if people from Nabi Saleh try to go, they get attacked by the settlers. And of course, the settlers are protected by the army as well. And when you drive along this road, if you don't know anything, you drive along this road, as in almost every road throughout Palestine. And just to be clear, when I say Palestine, I mean the entire country, from the river to the sea, from Al-Jalil to the Naqab. The entire country is Palestine. When you drive almost on any road in Palestine, like this one, very often you're going to see a Palestinian town on one side, and you're going to see an Israeli colony on the other side, an Israeli settlement. And almost always you're going to see one side green and looking very beautiful, and the other side dry and kind of arid and dusty. And I remember growing up learning that this is a sign that we, the Jews, came and we made the desert bloom, and that the Arabs are incapable of developing the country, because look at how dry and arid. They can't even grow trees. Look, even the trees are dry and dead. And this is a comment that you get from many people who visit the country. I mean, if you've been to Palestine, if you've driven along the main highway, it's called Route 6, that divides the country, goes south-north, north-south. You see this, and people say, yeah, well, look at what a beautiful job the Jews did, and look what a terrible job the Arabs have done. The point that's missing from the conversation is, why is it like this? What happened here? Why is there such a stark difference? And by the way, why do the Palestinian homes all have these enormous black water tanks on their roofs, whereas the Jewish Israeli homes don't? And that little piece, that little question that is rarely asked, is incredibly important, because that answers not only the question of why it looks like this, but it is the key to understanding how the apartheid regime that is called Israel operates. Palestinians are provided 3% of the water in the country. The entire water, all the water in the country is governed by the Israeli Water Authority, Makorot, and they allocate 3% of the water to the Palestinians, who make up the majority of the population in Palestine. So if you know, for example, in Nabi Saleh, that you're only going to get 12 hours of running water per week, then of course your entire perspective is different. Your priorities are different than if you know, like across the street, that you get as much water as you could possibly want and then some. So that, not only answers the question why it looks like this, but also explains how the system works and why it is flawed. Let's see. So one of the most impressive things I've ever seen in Nabi Saleh, and I've seen many impressive things, this is one of the protests. This is actually the winter, this is January 2012. It was freezing cold, it was pouring rain, and one of the things that the army does, they have these enormous tankers that shoot out, it's called skunk water. And it's this terrible chemical that they spray, and smells horrible. So they play this cat and mouse game where every time the tanker comes up, all the protesters run. And then at one point, all the women who were there decided they refused to run. So all of us, all the guys are up in the hills running away from this water, and all the women lined up. These are all young women in their hijab, stood up with the flags, with a peace sign, and they would not move. And they were sprayed with this putrid, horrifying smell, which doesn't go away. It takes a couple of weeks for it to really go away if it hits your skin. And their hair and their clothes, and they did not budge. We are not moving from here. And again, this is that wonderful Palestinian spirit, that wonderful Nabi Saleh spirit that is so impressive. And I think many people who have been to Palestine, who've been there, sense the same thing. I go to Nabi Saleh a lot. Bassem Tamimi, Janna's uncle, is one of my best friends, and I love the place. And so I've participated in some of these protests. I was arrested a couple of times. This is during a visit, and Janna is going to tell you about this young boy, Muhammad Tamimi. We happened to meet him, this is maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, less than 2 years ago, and this is Bassem, my friend, and he just came out of prison. So Bassem was, we met him on the street, so we said hello, took a picture. This young boy, who I believe was 14 at the time, had just come out of jail. More recently, he was shot, and Janna's going to tell you about that in her comments, and this is him right now. And if this was any other country, a boy like that would be kept in seclusion. He'd be kept, people would take care of him. He would have a helmet. He would be, medical care would be. He was arrested since then several times. And the way Palestinian children are arrested, again, Janna will talk about that, is horrifying. And I put HR 2407 on top of that because HR 2407 is Betty McCollum's bill that calls on the Secretary of State to make sure that U.S. funds do not go to facilities where Palestinian children are tortured, arrested and tortured and interrogated. And the good thing about this bill, besides that it's the right thing to do, is that it actually outlines precisely the treatment that Palestinian children go through when they are detained by the Israeli Authority. This image is probably much more well known. This is Ahid Tamimi on the one side in the good days, just by her house, me and her dad hanging out, and then her, and you see the handcuffs and the policewoman holding on to her. And this is for doing something that she had absolutely every right to do, and every father would want his daughter to do the exact same thing, stand up when an armed man, tries to invade her space and her privacy. And she kicked him out and slapped him. So for that, she had to be arrested, interrogated, spent time in horrible conditions, and then had to actually be in jail for 8 months, she and her mother. Once again, HR 2407, the way, if there's any member of Congress, and like I always say, if you don't live in DC and you actually do have a member of Congress, you want to make sure that that member of Congress signs on to this legislation, because any member of Congress who does not should be shamed, should be outed. How could you possibly not support a bill that protects children anywhere, and in this case, Palestinian children? So I'm going to tell you a little story, and then I'm going to finish here. So this is, again, one of the images that you see during protests. You see the sniper, and the officer who's giving him the orders, and then another soldier who is kind of protecting the sniper. And typically what you'll see, and there's another soldier videotaping. And quite often what you'll see is the older Palestinians, the parents will stand in front of the sniper and put their hand in front of the muzzle. I've seen that in Nabi Saleh many, many, many times. But why is there a sniper? Why is there a sniper? They've come supposedly to stop an unarmed resistance in a village that has never had a gun, never had any kind of weapons. Why do you need a sniper? And there's not just one. There's usually several snipers. On that particular day, I ended up being arrested, and then at one point, Janna's mother, Ahid's mother, were trying to pull me away from the soldiers, and you can see how the officer is spraying Nariman, Ahid's mother, with pepper spray right in her face. So they would let go of me so that they could take me. In that moment, I have to say, when I'm an Israeli, And I'm there, of course, to walk and resist with them. But that moment when these Palestinian women were holding on to me to protect me from Israeli soldiers trying to arrest me, it's another one of those life experiences that you never ever forget. And look what you had to suffer. That was really quite horrifying. And then, of course, they did arrest me. This is it. But Nabi Saleh is a beautiful place. We've had conferences there, international conferences there, with different religious figures, with political figures. Wonderful things happen in Nabi Saleh. It's a beautiful place. And I think in many ways, one of the problems with Palestine typically is that it actually is a very nice place. And when you look at a wonderful young lady like Janna, you think she couldn't possibly have come from such a horrible, horrible place. But she did, and she's going to go back there. And the life that Palestinians live and the day-to-day struggles that young Palestinians have to go through is so far beyond what we could possibly imagine unless we've been there and we've experienced it and we've seen it. So far beyond what any young kid anywhere else in the world goes through, and indeed should go through. So I'm going to end with inviting everybody to get one of these buttons. Ramzi's got the bag. If you want them, they come in yellow and in pink, and you can pick the color that you want. Another really, really important bill that's out there right now that was introduced by the wonderful Ilhan Omar, together with Rashida Tlaib and support from John Lewis, the civil rights icon, H.R. 246, to guarantee the right of Americans to boycott as freedom of speech. The bill doesn't say anything about Palestine or Israel specifically, as far as I know, and it is an incredibly, incredibly important bill. And it's one of those things, once again, if you do have representation, make sure that your representatives sign on to this, or else they should be outed, because Americans' right to boycott and use boycott as a tool to resist oppression and occupation and violence and racism should not be, or should be protected. And this bill is precisely the bill to do that. So I'm going to stop here. Thank you all very much, and please help me welcome Janna Jihad from Nabi Saleh.
I can do it from here. Good. As you can see, soldiers are coming to take us our land. No, that can be the first one. As you can see, soldiers are coming to take us our land, and we're very afraid right now. No mercy. You're not people. You're not humans.
My name is Janna Jihad. I'm 12 years old. I live in Nabi Saleh in Palestine, and I'm the youngest registered press card carrying journalist. I became a journalist when I was 7 years old, when I saw that there was not enough journalists to cover things that happens in Nabi Saleh and Palestine. Like when my friend Mustafa had been killed, my uncle Rushdie had been killed, a lot of things started to happen, and the world didn't know about our feelings as children living under occupation. So I wanted to cover those things and to just send our message as Palestinian children living under occupation. I describe my camera as a weapon of choice because I believe that my camera is my weapon of choice that can help me send that message.
From here, as you can see, those terrorist people, humans with no humanity, are coming to our land.
Israeli occupation always tries to not let us report, cover the camera, take it, break it, hit us, arrest us, let us be injured because of us reporting. I want to work with CNN because they don't send the truth, and I want every single channel to send the truth. I don't say send the issue of the Palestinian, just send the truth.
Go hide my land! People with no humanity!
I have feelings like like you, like other person in the world. But we as Palestinians has to control our fears and don't let our fears control us, because if our fears controlled us, we're not gonna live. Of course, I wish that I have a normal life. When we try to play, they come raid the village, shoot at us, gas canisters because of us playing soccer in the street. When I want to go to my school, checkpoint after checkpoint after checkpoint in my ways. And that's why I'm fighting, because I don't want the next generation live the childhood that I'm living right now.
There's a lot of people that trying to say to the whole world about the martyr that was killed.
My goal is to be a part of liberating Palestine, to just let every child who's not living in freedom live in freedom, to just live in peace, love, equality. You know what does childhood mean? Live like any child in the world.
From the north entrance of Ramallah, Janna Jihad occupied Palestine.
So that video is a bit old. Yeah, so that's why I said CNN and stuff, but I don't want to work with them anymore. But, so I'm going to introduce myself again. So I'm Janna Jihad. I'm right now 13 years old. I live in Nabi Saleh, which is a village of 500 people in Palestine. And I'm the youngest registered press card carrying journalist in the world. So I started when I was 7 years old, when I realized that there were not enough journalists to cover things that happened in Nabi Saleh. Like when my friend Mustafa was killed, my uncle Rushdie was killed. A lot of things were happening in the world. I didn't know about how we feel as children, how we're suffering every single day on our way to school, how we're feeling when we see our friend getting killed in front of us, or our parents getting injured, or our friends getting arrested, how we're not living our childhood, how rights are getting violated. So I wanted to be the voice of those children and just send their message to the world, try to raise awareness about this very important and international issue, and just let everyone know about what's happening in Palestine, because it's very important for us. And we're just like very tired of this occupation, this thing that is happening in Palestine. So I think you heard about my cousin Ahtami, who was arrested in 2017 when she was only 16 years old, just because of her trying, to just defend her house and not let the soldiers come into her house and shoot from her house onto the children who are playing around. And it was right in that time, a lot of journalists came to the village. I was interviewed in addition to my normal reports, because it was right after Trump's declaration that Jerusalem was the capital of Israel. And after that, we had a lot of stuff happening in the West Bank, a lot of raids that are happening in Nabi Saleh. So after that, I made a lot of reports, of course, and the Israeli Ministry of Strategic Thoughts made a secret report about me, saying that I'm the next threat on their state, just because of me trying to cover whatever is happening. And after that, I got registered. That report was actually revealed by the Israeli 4th news channel. And after that, I got a lot of threats, intimidations by the Israeli street and the Israeli community. And after that, I got registered by the Palestinian Journalist Syndicate as the youngest journalist, and I was given a press card. And it was right after me being stopped on the border between Palestine and Jordan, because it's the Israeli border, because we don't have an airport. It's all demolished. We cannot use the Israeli airport, so we have to go to Jordan and fly from Jordan to any other places. So when I was coming back from Jordan, I was exactly 12 years old in 4 days. I was stopped for about 3 hours, interrogated, because the Israeli military law, it says that if you're a Palestinian child, if you're 12 years old and up, you can get arrested, interrogated, treated like a criminal just because of you trying, to send your message, trying to do whatever, just defending your house, defending yourself, defending your land or your family or anything. And that shows how less of freedom of speech we are given, and how this right is basically getting violated, because I'm just not doing anything wrong. I'm just sending my message, trying to cover whatever is happening with my camera and with my phone. So because of me doing that, I was stopped, I was interrogated, I was intimidated, I was threatened, and a lot of stuff happens for us journalists. You know, even if I was like not live streaming, even if I was recording, I would just, you know, they would try to take my camera, break it. If I was on live stream, I'm gonna show you a video right now. How they were trying to to stop me from recording, putting their phones on the camera, trying to just stand in front of me, surround me, stop me from covering, laughing, talking. And here we have a video. It was also while Ahd was arrested, and it was when they raided the village and they were stopping us from going into her house.
أنا هيتي بقى إلي.
اضحكوا اليوم بضحك، بس بكره لما تتحرر فلسطين احنا اللي رح نطلع، وكل الأسرى رح يطلعوا، وفلسطين رح تتحرر إذا بدكم وإذا ما بدكم. ما تطلعش هذا الكلام من دارك، لأنه في يوم من الأيام رح يجي هذا الإشي ويتحقق. وزيد من الأعيرة النارية على الأطفال. من هنا كما ترون ننقل رسالتنا أننا باقون هنا ولن نذهب لأي مكان. من قرية نبي صالح جنى جهاد فلسطين محتلة. From here, as you can see, those terrorist people, humans with no humanity, are coming to our land, trying to kill children and to make children get injured. From here, we're sending our message and saying that Palestine will be free. From Nabi Saleh Janna Jihad, occupied Palestine. خافوا منه، خافوا، شطور. يلا روح.
يلا.
خلاص.
وانتي عارف شو بدك تساوي جوا يا خرا؟ نسيوه.
Yeah. So that was my mom speaking. So yeah, and that shows how they're not, for us not doing anything wrong, just me trying to report, they're trying to stop me in everything. And also I'm also trying to highlight how our right of freedom of movement is also getting violated, because every single day, about when I'm going to my school, about every day we have checkpoints on our ways, and personally I face about 3 checkpoints on my way to school. So if there were checkpoints, the Israeli checkpoints in the West Bank is basically, they're not checkpoints, they're barriers that are on the street. They're blocking us from going to our places that we need to go to on the time. So instead of me to go going to my school in about 25 to 30 minutes, I have to take another way that takes me about 2 hours and a half to 3 hours to reach my school. And it's not only a struggle for me as a child, but it's a struggle for basically all the Palestinian community, because just my grandma started doing kidney dialysis 2 years ago from how much tear gas she used to inhale, and then she has to go to the hospital 3 days a week, and sometimes she can't because of those checkpoints. A lot of women gave birth to their children on those checkpoints in the cars because of them not reaching the hospital in the time. And a lot of patients cannot reach the hospital. A lot of workers cannot reach their works because of those checkpoints. So we can't go to the time, to the place in the time we need to be there. And that's one thing. So basically my normal day as a Palestinian child, sometimes I wake up on the sound of gas canisters just bumping near my window at 3 a.m. in the morning. Just imagine your kids, yourself, or anyone, just waking up at 3 a.m. on the sound of gas canister, or on a soldier breaking into your house and having this huge weapon and waking you up with it, threatening you. If they didn't arrest you, they're gonna kill you, kill your family members and stuff. And then a lot of children get arrested. I try to cover also those night raids and those arrestings during the night raids. And after that, I have to go to my school, and even after facing those checkpoints and then reaching my school, sometimes we cannot open the windows because my school is right next to a clashing point in Ramallah. And it's basically always there are tear gas, and we cannot open the window because we basically don't want to smell tear gas. And in a lot of schools, the Israeli occupation soldiers would come and raid the school and arrest children from their classes while they're studying and while they're getting educated. And coming back from my school, I also faced checkpoints. Like going into my house, I usually cannot concentrate because of the raids that are happening outside while studying. You just like, even if I'm studying, I'm just like thinking if anybody got injured, if anybody got killed, if anybody got arrested or anything. And even when we're trying to live our childhood as Palestinian children, I love to play soccer. So sometimes I go with my friends and play soccer in the street, and sometimes the Israeli occupation soldiers would like raid the village and come and start shooting at us gas canisters just because of us playing soccer and just because of us trying to live like any normal child around this world. So that's one thing. That's one of the like really small things in that the Israeli occupation violate from us. And the third thing I would like to highlight is also the settlements. So they said the West Bank is a Palestinian place and stuff. So 68% of the West Bank is basically illegal Israeli settlements. So those illegal settlements are like everywhere. Next to my village, we have Halmish, which is one of the biggest settlements, and it's only 50 meters far from my village, which only one road separates us. And you saw how Halmish looks like. And so there are a lot of settlements everywhere in the West Bank. We have tens or maybe hundreds. So those settlements, what a lot of children get arrested too. So within 1 kilometer of this settlement, 98% of the children get arrested within that 1 kilometer of the settlement. And also, I think you all heard about, not you all heard, but like most of you heard about the thing that happened yesterday and before yesterday in Wadi al-Hummus, which is which is located in South Jerusalem. And it's basically, so what happened there is they demolished 16 buildings, and it's 2019's Nakba. 120 families became refugees because the justification of the Israeli authorities is that it's right next to the wall, right next to the apartheid wall, and it's for security reasons, but it's basically because they wanted to build a settlement in that area because it's a very strategic and nice area. So that's basically what we call ethnic cleansing. They're killing, like basically just erasing us from our land, and it's even like, it's like, it's like so bad. Just imagine yourself waking in the middle of the night on those bulldozers and on those soldiers just coming and telling you, oh, you cannot take anything. We're just gonna demolish your house, demolish your building. And they were not allowed to take anything of their clothes, their pictures, their, their everything. Everything was in there. And, I saw a video of a man saying that I'd prefer me getting killed me getting killed in the house than me seeing my house getting demolished in front of me. It's the place you were raised in, the place you grew up in, and it's pretty bad. Just it's the worst thing ever. And so it's not the first time that happens. Like in Nabi Saleh itself, there are about 13 houses that are threatened to be demolished. And in Nabi Saleh, it's like 70% of Nabi Saleh, it's basically Area C, which is basically Israeli. And those houses that were demolished, it was Area A, which is fully Palestinian, controlled by the Palestinian Authority, but it was demolished. And also, it's, Israel basically must not do that, which is basically, a violation of the international law. Why would you demolish a house of a child, demolish and make those families refugees, like 120 families? Imagine how much, the Palestinian families are big, and like you have a lot of children in every family, and there was like 120 family, just like multiply it by 6 or something. So basically we also have one of the most things that I always want to talk about, which is the child prisoner issue. So the child prisoner issue is one of the things we as Palestinian children face, and is one of the worst things, I believe, for us. So as I said, sometimes we get arrested during the night at 3 a.m. for no freaking reason, and or you can get arrested from your school on the checkpoint during a demonstration, during a march, or anything. You can get arrested like tons of ways. So during that arrest, we get subjected and we face a lot of stuff. So a couple of the things we face is basically interrogation. During interrogation, you can get subjected to physical violence, getting out of the interrogation session. You can have mental issues and psychological issues. During that interrogation, it can last for a couple of weeks or maybe months, and every single day you only have one meal. You get subjected to solitary confinement. You, as a child, imagine a child facing all of that. You know, you get beaten up. You 11 hours, 11 hours a day of interrogation is pretty hard for us. Just questioning us. And it's one of the worst things. So you basically get like long-term handcuffed, blindfolded, and a lot of stuff, and that's one of the worst things. So I can say 95% of my very close friends got arrested, and as we know, that illegal law, I name it as illegal law, which is basically the 12 years old child can get arrested. Even that illegal law, they basically break it sometimes. For example, last year, my cousin, his name is Samad, he was 11 years old and he got arrested. So so the child prisoner issue is one of the worst things. So as I'm gonna speak a little bit about Muhammad Tamimi, who you saw, he lost 1/3 of his skull. So Muhammad Tamimi is one of my close friends too. So it was the same day that I slapped the soldier. So in that day, Muhammad, it was like after Trump declared Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, so a lot of stuff were happening in the West Bank and in Nabi Saleh, a lot of raids, a lot of, tear gas canisters just bombing, and the Israeli occupation soldiers were in the village for a couple of days. So they were shooting randomly gas canisters, and then Muhammad and a couple of our friends were playing with him. And they were right next to that wall. It's not a separation wall. It's not a apartheid wall. It's a normal wall, and there was a ladder right next to it. So suddenly the shooting stopped, and he thought that maybe someone got arrested, someone got injured. So he climbed that ladder and wanted to see if something happened. In the same time, he just looked. The soldiers were right under that wall, and he got shot with a rubber bullet that came here and was it came in all the way and was stuck in his brain, and he was in a coma for 7 days. And then after that, it's a pretty high wall, so when he got shot, he just fell on his back, and that whole part of his skull was basically it was broken. And that's the problem in the world. They only see how I slapped the soldier, but they don't see what happened right before that, and the same soldier was the one that I slapped. So after that, fortunately, we his friends just took him to the hospital. We were basically 99% sure that he's not gonna live, and it was a miracle. And he lived, but after that, so before that injury, he was arrested once when he was only 13 years old. And after that injury, he had a very bad or a very dangerous surgery, which is taking that bullet out of his brain, which caused that whole part of his skull to be gone. And basically, that whole part, his brain was only covered with skin. And just imagine that whole part of your skull away. So after that, he got arrested 3 times. One of those times was while he was still treated, and he was basically just in the hospital and stuff. And it was it was 1 month after that. And when he got arrested, it was pretty hard for him because it was pretty dangerous. He got blindfolded, and it's pretty, that whole thing is pretty rough for him. And they even forced him to sign a paper that said that he didn't get shot, but he fell off a bike. That's why he lost 1/3 of his skull. So after that, that was the first time of him getting arrested after his injury. The second time was in Ramadan, this Ramadan, and he was basically kidnapped. So it was after iftar. He was just walking in the streets, and while he was walking, there was there was like that normal car. It was a Palestinian registered car, and Israeli soldiers pretended to be Palestinians because most of them speak Arabic fluently. So they pretended to be Palestinians and wanted to ask him for directions, and then they kidnapped him and arrested him basically. And they went to the interrogation center, and they didn't inform his parents. So we kept looking for Muhammad for like a whole day. Like his parents were calling us, "Is Muhammad with you?" Because it's normally he would go home at 1 a.m. or something because he's always with us. But in that time, it was like 4 a.m. and it's getting 5, 6, and then we couldn't find Muhammad. Where was he? So after a whole day, we got informed that he was arrested, and it was pretty hard for us because we thought something happened to him. And the third time was he got treated in South Africa in last September. So when he was treated, he came back, during October, September. And then when he came back, he got arrested. And he had one charge, which was that he was protesting in an illegal demonstration in those dates. And in those dates, he was in South Africa. So they showed them the passport, and it was very clear that they were just like lying because they wanted to arrest more children, and that's the case in the Palestinian child prisoner issue. So that's only one story of maybe hundreds or thousands of stories. That's why we made our initiative, which is called Shamsan. So I'm the ambassador of Shamsan, which is an initiative which was created about 3 years ago. We interviewed about 300 child, and we chose 13 children for a calendar. So it's basically to just to create a platform for those Palestinian children to send their message to the world. And we made a lot of campaigns. For example, the child prisoner campaign, which was last year. Miranda rights. We had a lot of stuff. We try to help a lot of children who got injured, and especially in Gaza because they're under siege. And right now, our main campaign is the Educational Fund, which was created on my birthday. So it was because, a lot of people were just telling us, "Oh, it's your birthday, let's send you gifts and stuff." But we created this Educational Fund, so it can be basically to just create a fund for the Palestinian children because, a lot of children are under siege in Gaza, and they cannot go to universities. They cannot afford maybe going out. A lot of, in the West Bank, checkpoints and a lot of stuff, a lot of child prisoners that they came out of jail after skipping years of school. So we were trying to help those children. Here we have some of the flyers. I can leave some. And so that's one of our main campaigns right now. We have a lot of Shamsan groups in Lebanon. We have in Jordan, in Palestine, in South Africa, in Italy. And so that's one of the main things we need to share with the world, which is basically the children's stories. And one of those children was Ahmad Dawabche, which I think you heard about him. He was the only survivor of the Dawabche family, which they were burned in the middle of the night by a settler. And his mom died, his father died, and his 18-month-old brother died, and he was the only survivor. And a very huge percentage of his body was burned. He stayed in the hospital for a whole year. And I think you guys are wondering why we called it Shamsan. It was because every single child we interviewed, we made them draw something. So what Ahmad Dawabche drew, he drew himself having an umbrella because he cannot get exposed to the sun because he's burnt. And he drew his house with bright yellow, although his house was black from how much it was burnt. And he drew his brother Ali, he was playing on a bike, and his brother was dead. He drew a lot of animals, chickens and stuff, and a lot of nice stuff. And also he drew 2 sons, which when we asked him why did he draw 2 sons, he said, "It's my picture, and I want to draw 2 sons because I want the world to be extra sunny and brighter." And also psychologically, it means that those 2 sons were his parents. So yeah, that's what we're aiming for. We want to spread this message and to raise awareness about this very important and international issue. So I see a lot of children here, and I believe that you guys are the leaders of the future and the leaders of today. So I believe we all have to unite to make this world a world of peace, a world of love, a world of equality and justice, to liberate Palestine, to just, every single child that is suffering around the world, we don't want them to suffer anymore. We're just tired of all of that, and we just want to live a normal childhood, a normal life. So I hope we all can unite and not repeat those mistakes of the leaders right now, which all of them are separated, all of them are divided, but we have to make a difference, and that's our duty, as I believe, as the next leaders of the future. So thank you very much, and yeah. There's a Q&A session, right?
So let's start with some questions.
Thank you, Muhammad, and thank you for my young colleague. I think you're the youngest, but I'm probably the oldest Palestinian journalist that's still around. So, and I have been doing this for a very, very long time. My question to you is really very simple. Do you only cover events at Nabi Saleh, or are you able to go and cover other events in other places? And how do you go about conveying your messages? Is it on a daily basis? You write your story, you write your outline, and then you send it? Thank you.
So, thank you for your question. So basically what I do is, it's not only in Nabi Saleh, because sometimes my school is in Ramallah. So whenever I'm in Ramallah and something happens, I just cover that. Whenever I'm in Hebron and something happens, I cover that. Whenever I'm in a place and anything happens, I cover it. So it's not like it's like daily, or I can't say it's weekly or anything, because I don't know when the soldiers would raid the village, or I don't know when someone is going to get arrested or anything. So whenever something happens, I try to cover it, and I post it on my Facebook page, and yeah. Thank you.
I assume that there are no curfew restrictions imposed by your parents.
Well, yeah, my parents are very supportive. Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question. I have two, actually.
Oh.
Muhammad Dawabsha, what's happening to him now?
So Ahmad Dawabsha, he's 6 right now. Yeah, so he lived with his grandpa, and last year his grandpa died, but right now he's living with his uncle.
So he has family that he's living with.
Yeah.
Another thing is, I want to ask you what you think we should do here in the United States in order to help you do your job better and make life a little bit better for you, because I know how hard it is for you over there.
Okay, so that's a thing you guys have to figure out yourself, but I'll give you some stuff, So as I said, we have an educational fund. We have a lot of other stuff, like, for example, you guys can be the voice of those children and just spread the message, You can do a lot of stuff. You can spread the message. You can try to share it with your friends, and yeah. What is it?
Or there's other organizations that we can support.
I think there are a lot of other organizations, but yeah, that's our organization, and yeah. I can leave some of the flyers, though. Yeah, I will. Yeah. And yeah, also as to just call your representatives and tell them to just co-sponsor HR 2407, the bill "No Way to Treat a Child," because yeah, that's very important. Yeah.
It's important to, I would say, make sure your representatives, if you have one, supports that bill and supports Ilhan Omar.
Yeah, yeah.
But more than that, they need to understand that the people that called Nelson Mandela a terrorist are now hiding in some corner and pretending like it never happened. The people who do not support these two bills are going to be the same. And it's important that they're outed, and it's important that they're exposed, and it's important that they know that their names will be forever remembered. If they don't do this for the right reasons, then it's okay for them to do this, to support this, out of shame, out of knowing that if they don't do this, they're going to be shamed. These two bills are absolute wonderful opportunities to probably the best things that we can do to support the type of stuff that you saw Janna do it. I don't know how many of us would have the courage to stand up in front of those armed officers. These are not just soldiers. These were officers, lieutenants, and colonels, fully armed. It looked like they were prepared for battle, and this was the enemy. So it's extremely important that that is made clear.
If you could clarify, it's the HR resolution 496, not 246.
Oh, really?
496 is the one by.
496.
The 2407 is the Betty
496 is
McCollum.
Omar? Okay, I apologize. Okay. Oh, okay then. Then that's the one.
On 246 is the
Okay.
anti-BDS
All right.
resolution in the House. It's being voted on this evening. It is very much expected to pass. Most of the Democratic Party in the House are already co-sponsors, but if you do have a representative, you can still call their office today. This bill is filled with fallacies about the BDS movement, clear, blatant lies that are incorrect. You can call your representative, tell them that even if they did co-sponsor this resolution, they can vote no. We're expecting the vote today.
Okay.
496. So
246 is being voted on today.
and 496 is the pro boycott.
Sponsored by Ilhan Omar.
Okay then.
Last week.
496 it is.
That guarantees the right for every American
To boycott, yes.
It does not mention Israel. It does not mention the Palestinians. So it is the right that is, ingrained in the First Amendment.
Yeah. Yeah, you can ask.
Hi, thanks for speaking to us today. You talked about how your personal experience helped inspire you to become a journalist, but I was hoping you could also speak to your educational experience, as you talked about how the checkpoints were making getting to your school in Ramallah difficult. If you could talk about how, I guess, your education has either inspired you or helped you along the way, or how you think it could do better to inspiring more journalists like you.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Is that working? Yeah. Okay. So, I'm loud enough. But, so yeah, for me, education is like, of course I hate school, but education is very important, aside from but education is very important, and I believe that the next generation has to be a very educated generation so they can liberate Palestine, and that's what Israel is trying to, not let us be an educated generation because of those checkpoints. They're putting checkpoints, in the time that school starts. Why wouldn't they put it like any other time, or why would they put it why would they put it at all? And so, yeah, we have to be, education is very important. And also, as Nelson Mandela said, education is the most powerful weapon that can be used to change the world. So we have to use education to change the situation that is happening in Palestine. Yeah.
Hi, Jenna. Thanks for your presentation, and thank you also, Miko. My question is about how you got started reporting. Your Nariman Tamimi worked with Bet Selam in the video shoot back program, and Bilal Tamimi is known as the videographer for everything happening in Nabi Saleh, constantly documenting the crimes and the violence that's happening. Did that influence your starting in journalism?
Of course,
or was it just
I was born into an activist family, and some members of my family were journalists. So it's very inspiring to see how the message was basically sent, and it was pretty amazing to see how people were responding to those videos in live streamings that they were doing. So I wanted to be part of that. Of course, it was very amazing. Yeah. Of course.
Hi, Jenna. Thank you for your talk.
1 second.
Thank you for your talk and for sharing your story. I really appreciate it. I was just wondering what your dreams for the future are. In a perfect world, what do you want your future to be?
Okay, so every single month I change my careers. But at the moment, what I want to study is, my major is going to be political science and my minor is going to be gender studies. And I also like playing soccer, so yeah.
My turn?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. I wanted to ask you, how do your classmates react to you being up there in front, being in the limelight, being, a bit famous? So how do they react? Is there support? Is there jealousy? Is there antagonism? Explain to us.
There is everything, but there is a lot of my close friends are very supportive, and like I believe they're like one of the main supporters of me, and that's what gives me a push to continue, and I'm very proud of that, and I'm very happy to have them. Yeah. Any other questions?
Assalamu alaikum, dear. My name is Wafa, and I have two questions for you. One, what do you answer when they say that the people in Gaza are terrorists and it's okay to do what has been done to them, including their children? My second question, what would you like to be right now? If you don't have an occupation, what would you like to be doing as a 13-year-old young lady growing up in Nabi Saleh, a beautiful village? Thank you so much.
No problem. But yeah, the first questions that they say, shooting rockets is terrorism and stuff. So first thing, even just count. Let's count how many people were killed by Hamas and how many people were killed by the Israeli occupation. Only in Gaza. We're not talking about the West Bank or in Palestine in general. And the second thing also, Hamas was created, I think, after 1967, but the occupation was created in 1948, and they were killing children from the beginning. And personally, I'm not into any political party because I believe in equality and unity. So, yeah. And the second question was, what? Oh, yeah. I would love to be a child. Because I really want to live my childhood and live like any other child around this world, be playing instead of getting shot, be drawing instead of me seeing my friends getting killed in front of me. So yeah. So fighting soldiers and yelling at them, that's not your dream. Of course, why would I want to be fighting soldiers or be resisting while I, a normal child's life is to play. And my life is not normal, so I really want a normal life, not an abnormal life. So yeah.
Hi, Janna.
Hi.
Could you talk a little bit about the role of women in your village and the role of women in resistance?
Of course. So I'm a feminist, but so in Nabi Saleh it was the difference between Nabi Saleh from other villages is that we also, in our demonstrations, we had women, but in other villages, they didn't have women in other places. So that's one of the main reasons we succeeded, and it's I believe that why wouldn't women's are half society, and they raise the other half, and they also behind of every very great man a woman that raised him, but behind every great woman herself. So why wouldn't women cooperate in all of this resistance? And of course it's very important because those women are the ones who would raise you and teach you how to resist the Zionist and terrorist occupation. So yeah, the role of women in Nabi Saleh is very great. We always see women in the front lines of the demonstrations. Women got arrested, women got injured, women got killed. A lot of stuff happens, and that's how women because this occupation doesn't care if it's a woman that they're killing or a child or a man. So why would we care who resists or who goes into the demonstration?
Okay, we have time for one more question.
Thank you. Thank you, Janna, for your talk today.
No problem.
I've read that there are special jails the Israelis have for children. And my question to you is, if a child gets arrested by the Israelis, how do they get out? Do they have to have a lawyer? Do they have to have a court appearance? What happens?
Well, basically, It's not that like it's a specific jail for children, but in every single jail there is a child section. So, for example, in Al Fad we have a section for children. For like in every single jail we have sections for children. Yeah, like when they get out, we get subjected to military courts, unlike the Israeli children who get subjected to normal courts. So, of course, yeah, we have lawyers, but during the interrogation, us as children, we're supposed to have a lawyer or one of our parents, and we're not allowed to have any of that. But yeah, we do have lawyers, but it's not it's they even break the laws of those military courts. So sometimes children are basically imprisoned for no charges, and children are getting arrested for no charges. Also, Muhammad, the first time he got arrested before getting injured, he got arrested for 3 months with no charge. As they say, a secret file, which is basically nothing. So, yeah.
I want to add to that, there are no juvenile facilities. The military courts do not have juvenile facilities. The interrogations, the imprisonment, they do have, like you said, separate rooms. But they do not have, and that is one of the complaints against the Israeli military court system, and it was demanded of Israel to create a juvenile system because so many children are being arrested and detained and tortured, but there is none. They're being treated just like adults.
Okay, so we're going to have one more question, and it's fitting because it's from also a child. So,
are you afraid of Israelis?
Well, basically, I'm a human and I'm a child, so I have feelings and I can get afraid, and I'm always scared. When I was very young, when I was your age, I swear, I was the most scared person you could ever meet. I was whenever the soldiers would come into the village, you would find me under the table or just in my room or something. So after that, after the killing of my uncle and Mustafa, which is my friend, I realized that we have to just control our fears and not let our fears control us, because if our fears controlled us, we can't resist. We can't change anything if we didn't resist. So yeah, that's what I believe we have to do. But I am scared sometimes.
Janna and Miko, thank you so much.
No problem.
We appreciate it. Thank you.